안녕하세요. 책 읽는 고양이입니다. Chapter 2. Amidst the midnight scream. Snug and warm in her bed, Tara was asleep. Her stuffed toy stood guard near the window. A high fire glowed softly in the darkness. Because it was still vacation time, the desk was clear of schoolbooks and folders. Suddenly, a powerful gust shook the curtains and slammed the French door open, and a ghostly white snap floated into the room. Then gradually, as if painfully, the apparition took an unhuman form, a beautiful young woman with long wavy brown hair, looking terribly sad. The pale ghost approached the bed and leaned over Tara, seized by a powerful wave of love for the girl. Tara, Tara, darling, listen to me, hear my voice. The girl smiled in her sleep. Mommy, is that you? Yes, love, it's me. I finally succeeded in sending my spirit to earth. Listen carefully, because I don't have much time. You and your grandmother are in terrible danger. Her eyes still closed. Tara frowned. Mom, you aren't dead? No, darling, I was kidnapped by Magister, the terrible master of blood graves. He made everybody think I was dead, but I am alive and being held prisoner in the great fortress on other world. We have to warn Grandma and free you. No, anything but that, the woman cried with alarm. Magister put a deadly spell on me. You mustn't try to find me, darling. You need to care yourself. Listen, when I'm gone, I want you to wake up and go see your grandmother. Tell her that you had a strange vision with the man with the skinny mask was attacking the manor house. I thought Magister will come himself. He probably sent his right-hand man, Duncan. Your grandmother will know what to do to protect against them. But don't tell her about me, Tara. I forbid it. Do you understand? Before Tara could protest, a person touched the girl's forehead to impede her comment, but jerked her hand back. By my ancestor, my ancestor spell, your grandmother put a mentis in your mind, so you already come into your powers. Now I understand why Magister wasn't interested in you before now. He's waiting for you to become a spellbinder. My God, Tara, the mentis will erase what I just told you. You're going to forget it all. Phantom desperately tried to break the mentis, but she was too weak, and the spell was too powerful. It was already erasing her presence and words from Tara's mind. With temper more, she quit struggling the speed after the final one. Remember, I'm begging you, daughter, remember. But Tara remained stuck in a deep sleep induced by the mentis, and the hour passed heavy and cold without her stirring. Suddenly a scream rang out through the open window. Tara opened her eyes and sat up. She had no idea how she wound up in her bed, but one thing was sure. She had heard a strange noise. Another scream rang out. Heart pounding, she jumped out of bed and ran to the window, where she witnessed a nightmarish scene. her pounding, she jumped out of the bed and ran to the window, where she witnessed a nightmarish scene. By the light of the morning moon. 4 dark figures were fighting with Torchul and Magus, who were struggling desperately not to be overwhelmed. Tara gave a frightened shriek and raced out of her room. Her grandmother was already running downstairs, and she followed her. When they emerged in front of the manor, Torchul and Magus were lying on the ground, the 4 dark shapes bending over them straightened majestically. Tara turned pale. These things were human, scarred fur covered burly muscles, and the paws sported fearsome steel-colored claws. The lumpy awkward bodies didn't look too deadly on the stubby legs, but they rushed toward Tara and Isabella in incredible speed. The old woman didn't flinch. She raised her hands high, which were glowing with blue fire, and cast a spell. By red Taurus, I banish you to the depths of hell, to languish in anguish until your death knell. The British ray leaped from her hands and lifted the 4 monsters, who swelled and whitened, screaming in pain. Despite their efforts to get Isabella, the spells took up effect just as their clothes brushed the hem of her long white nightgown, and they vanished. But a 5th shape was steadily moving closer. Isabella couldn't see the figure behind her back. She was dressed in dark gray, his face hidden in mirrors. He yelled, "But Riddat hold the spine of fists, then carried fire is deadly blast." Tara screamed, and when the ray hit her grandmother, unable to defend herself, Isabella crumped as the ray changed color, turning blood red. The shock shattered Tara's immense spell, and she suddenly remembered everything. She acted in flash. In desperate attempt to divide the red fire, she grabbed the ray and bent it back toward the attacker, hitting him full in the face. Screaming with rage and pain, the man struggled backward and blindly retreated the waiting limousine. The long black car spun around the screech of tires and rolled up. Tara rushed to her grandmother, but she felt as cold and hard as stone. It was like touching a statue. Tara moaned, not knowing what to do. Just then, Daria came running, alerted by the cries. Keeping her cool, the young woman rushed to Isabella and carefully petted the body, then did the same to the 2 servants. Looking Tara right into the said, "Tara, stop crying and listen to me. I'm going to need your help." "Daria, what happened? What in the world happened?" Tara had no idea what to do, but she remembered it all. The conversation, the focus, her grandmother's betrayal, the Amanasa spell, the fact that her mother was alive. "I'm such a fool," Daria said bitterly. "I was tired and I fell asleep. I feared as a protector. I came running and I heard the screams, but I was too late. You have to tell me what happened." "A protector? Yes, I am kind of bodyguard. Your grandmother had me look after you, and I've been very efficient. As you see, I've done a wonderful job protecting you from bees, mosquitoes, and snakes, but I believe that's all I am able to do." The real remorse seemed too profound that Tara affectionately patted her on the shoulder. "That's okay," she said. "You can't guard 24/7. These humpy things with claws attacked Torchul and Magus, and then Grandma came out and zapped the monster But the man in the gray, with his face hidden, hit her with his ray, so I grabbed it and turned it and hit him right in the face, and he screamed and ran away. The ray was breathing noisily. You grabbed the ray and turned it to him. Good heavens, I never heard of such a thing. What did they do to Grandma? What turned her into a statue? And what about Tachul and Magus? Are they dead? No, she said cautious. Monsters usually like to pray to be alive when they will. Let's say that without you, they would have been for a very rough time. You saved them. The attacker didn't want to use his power against two ordinary spellbinders. He was saving that for your grandmother. Let me think. He must use wizard fire. Did you see what color it was? I know it's hard to inexperienced spellbinder to tell, but it's important that you try to remember. White first and then red, Tara answered promptly. The ray was red. Daria gave her a sharp look. Red, eh? All right. It would be a new kind of perfect carbonizer. Of course, makes sense. When you bent this ray aside, it had time to betray your grandmother, which prevented her from casting a counter spell. He would have carbonized and killed her then, but you redirect the ray back to his face. You have no trouble recognizing him from now on. It's a wound that never fully heals. His face will burn until the end of his days, unless you cancel the spell or you die. Tara said nothing, but she kind of felt a satisfaction. All right, said Dari, listen to me. Your grandmother isn't dead, but her condition is serious. We can't leave her here. I have to go get help. I'm going to levitation spell to transform the bodies. I want you to watch me very carefully because you're going to have to do exactly the same thing. Tara was started. A spell? A levitation spell, yes. It lets me lift the bodies without touching them. I'll show you on Tachul and Mangus, and you can try with your grandmother. Tara was too shaken to think, so she didn't argue. Daria explained, you make a gesture of lifting, and you say, by levitus, I raise you in the air. You obey and float mid-air. Under the guard's astonished eyes, Tachul and Magnus' rigid bodies rose smoothly off the ground. Daria began to push them toward the manor. Tara turned to her grandmother. This whole business was completely nuts, Tara thought. She knew from experience how hard controlling her gift was, so it was without much conviction that she gestured the stiff body upward while imagining that it would obey her and begin to float. She was so skeptical that she had forgotten to receive the spell. Suddenly her grandmother took up, but not just a couple of feet, much, much higher. Before a better Tara had time to stop her, she had already soared over treetops and rising in the sky toward the moon. Come down, Grandma, yelled the panic-stricken girl. Come down! For one terrifying moment, she felt that her grandmother wouldn't obey her. But then the body abruptly began its descent, gracefully coming flat and front to her, struggling to come down, pounding her shoulder painfully, then very gingerly pushed the grandmother toward the house. The body moved effortlessly. All she had to do was to give it a push, and it moved to desired direction. She had little trouble turning into the main doorway and going upstairs with anxious movements. "Bring the lady to her bedroom, Tara," shouted Daria. "I'll set her through a mangus and their beds and come over." "All right," answered Tara, who was concentrating on keeping her grandmother from drifting away over the railing. When she finally got Isabella nicely floating above the embroidered quilt and on her bed, Tara heaved a sigh of relief. Threw Isabella's feet were at the pillow and her head at the bottom, but she didn't want to move her anymore. And entering the bedroom, she misquoted her grandmother, moaned the Tom, and almost sent her shooting out the open window. Before long, Daria arrived. Desperate the seriousness of the situation, she smiled when she saw that Tara had positioned her grandmother backward and clearly recanted to touch her from fear of doing something wrong. The big room was cluttered with books, papers, musical instruments, stuffed animals hanging from the ceiling, crystal vases, and piles of stuff on the sofa, both tables, and 3 armchairs. And that wasn't even counting Isabella, Labda, Mantu, who lay snoring in his basket, indifferent to call the commotion. He was the only dog Tara knew who could spend 24 hours asleep without so much twitching an ear. "Wait, I'll help you," exclaimed Daria, starting Tara, who hadn't heard her come in. Together they turned Isabella's body around. Then Daria told Tara what she had to do next. "We don't have power to undo the spell she's under. We'll have to get Shanaviza Haovira Ode in Tarachivu. I'm sure he will be able to petrify your grandmother." "Cham who?" asked Tara. "Cham nos Haoviro da Dain Tarachivu. He's one of the wizards of the High Council, High Wizard, or the most powerful spellbinders. The problem is that I have to go through the transport portal to contact him, and I don't dare leave you here all alone." "But Grandma can't stay here like this, and you said that the person who attacked her was burned, so he isn't going to come back right away. If you hurry, you can call your High Wizard Cham Dingamabob and get back in a few minutes. Is the porter in Bazumgrian Castle?" Daria shot her a piercing glance. "You're a very smart girl. You know that?" "Yes, you're right. That's where the porter is located." "You sure this is what you want to do?" Tara did a deep breath. "Listen, I don't understand half of what's going on. How can you expect me to make good decisions? I don't have any choice. Grandma has to wake up. Please go, Daria, and fast. I'm not afraid. Okay, darling, I obey, Darius said with a bow. It will take me 5 minutes to go to the castle and 10 to go through the portal and call Chamnoza Overo the Intarachivu and bring him back. Come downstairs with me. We are going to close the manor windows and shutters and leave instructions for Tachil and Mangus. As soon as they wake up, they'll go to the front room and keep any visitors from getting into the house. How are they? Said Tara, a little ashamed that she had forgotten the 2 favorite servants. They'll wake up with splitting headaches, said Daria, smiling, and they won't be able to cast any spells for a few hours. Aside from that, they'll be fine. Tara would prefer Tachul and Mangus to be in better shape, but she couldn't do anything about that. All right, let's go. Tara abundantly followed Daria downstairs. The young woman went to stand in the front of the front door and said, "By locust door and window close, and keep them buried against our foes." With dull rumble, the manor's windows and doors slammed shut and the shutters came rattling down. "The house is secure now," said Daria, "except for the front door, which you will lock behind me. The spell will active as soon as both flies home, and nobody will be able to come in without your permission. Don't worry, I'll be quick." Tara nodded bravely. She turned the key the moment Daria went out and went upstairs and did the same thing in the bedroom. Now she was alone in the big manor house, or at least only person who was conscious, and she felt completely abandoned. She'd been showing off when she told Daria she wasn't afraid. Actually, she was scared to death. And that night, everything seemed so different. Outside, the moon cast her silvery light, illuminating the dark forest, whose trees stood like silent skeletons. Tara shivered, feeling like the star of the low budget horror movie. Suddenly, she froze, gripped by a terrifying sensation of presence just behind her left shoulder. She knew that something was creeping toward her. Her heart started pounding fast. She was so scared it felt like her heart might burst out of her chest. Holding her breath, Tara very, very slowly turned around. Suddenly, a black shape jumped on her, and she screamed with terror. She leaped into the bed to get away, roughly sending her grandmother crashing into the dresser. For a second, she couldn't identify her attacker, and then she called, "Manitou, you stupid dog! You Maggie Morin! You can't go jumping on people like that! You almost gave me a heart attack! You mean, how dumb can you be? You idiot!" Awakened by Tara's conversation with Daria, the dog barked joyfully, happy to play in a new game. Then he went to the corner of the room and put his paw on the blue-green carpet. To Tara's great surprise, the big hole opened up in the carpet. Before she could stop him, Manu jumped down in it. Carpet closed up again, leaving no trace of the secret passage. Tara turned to her peaceful floating grandmother and said, "Hey, Grandma, you and I are going to have a serious talk." With great care, she responded the rigid body over the bed and continued, I'm getting sick and tired of all the secrets and lying. First of all, lies should be forbidden. You tell me all the time that I shouldn't lie, that I should tell the truth. Yatta, yatta, yatta. So what do? You hide the facts that you are a spellbinder, that Daria, Tajul, and Magnus are spellbinders too. Why not many too? Why you're at it? Then she caught herself. No, not many too. That dog is too dumb to be a spellbinder. In other words, you've been constantly hiding lots of things from me. And that's really lousy. There's a secret passage in your room, and probably in Count's castle too. And I don't know anything about anything as usual. But that's over. You can try to cast some sort of forgetting spells on me, but it won't work because I'm powerful. That's right, I am. Well, I will be once I understand what's going on. And I want to know that you don't know. I'm not going to tell you either. Mom is alive, and I'm going to find her. Tara, who had been very angry, now felt a lot better, and her heart sank at the memory of her mother's tenderness when she leaned over her. She remembered the conversation between the Count and her grandmother, who had been furious that he had relieved the spellbinder's decree to his son. Tara also remembered that Mother had told her not to tell anybody of her resurrection. She continued shooting at the motionless body, delighted to be able to give her grandmother a piece of her mind without fear or revelation. Suddenly she heard something outside. The sound of car. Inbound, Tara was at the window. The shutters were closed, but squeezing her face through the window pane, she could see a bottom crossbows. What she saw froze her blood. A black limousine and a large man getting out of it. There was no way to see his face because it was hidden behind a kind of shiny mask, like the first attacker, but he was much taller, and his body was wrapped with handsome grey cape. It was so dark that it looked black in the moonlight. With a large red circle on the chest, the man stood at the front door of the manor. The boy's like this very softly said, I want to see little Duncan girl. Tara, you don't need to hide. I know you are in there. If you come out, I'll give you a nice reward. What about some candy? I have lots. Tara wrinkled in her face in disdain. This guy must think she's too for candy. Not even a 4-year-old would fall for that one. She nervously grabbed a strand of white hair and started chewing it. What was she going to do? Magnus said Tajul was out of action, and so was her grandmother. And the race was taking much longer than 15 minutes she had promised. A movement went to the side, caught her eye. The carpet started to boil. Hall reappeared, and Matthew popped up into the room. Delighted to see Tara crouching by the window, he patted over and joyfully sucked his cold muzzle in her neck. Tara caught the dog and hugged him tight. By Tradamus, as grandma would say, we are in great pickle. If Daria doesn't come back very soon with her high visit, we are in big trouble. She pressed her face against the window again and saw some sort of agitation behind the masked man. 2, 3, and eventually 4 things climbed out of the car and started prancing all around him. They're covered with hair and had huge toothy jaws, but were quite unlike monstrous creatures of the previous attack. In spite of the mask covering his face, the man seemed annoyed. "Stop, you stupid muddy test!" he thundered. "Encircle the house right away, and don't let anyone out, understand? Master, master, encircle the house. No one out, encircle." But Mud is to stay close to the man, not moving. "What are you waiting for?" he screamed as the mask turned an angry shade of red. One of the eaters shuffled to him and asked, "What mean encircle?" The man's mask turned crimson and Tar thought he was going to explode. Mud eaters felt it too. They froze, starting at him in fear. "Encircle," he hissed, "means circling the house so no one can get out. Is that clear?" "Very clear, Mr. Master, very clear." "Then get going, you stupid mother!" The hairy, drooling beast headed toward the manor house and vanished behind the corner. The man took a deep breath and his mask gradually reverted to his shiny gray color. "Tara, answer me!" he cried. "I don't want to hurt you. I'm a spellbinder. I'm Magnus, the master of blood grace. I just want to tell you about your parents and your grandmother. Isabella has lies and misled you. She denied you and your inheritance, Tara. She hasn't told you anything. She claimed is to protect you, but that isn't true. It's because she knows that you will be much more powerful than she, that you will become the Imperial Spellbinder, and she doesn't want that to happen." Tara held the door tighter. She had no idea what Imperial Spellbinder was, but the blood guy was saying wasn't wrong, and she was dying to know more. Who were her parents? Where did her grandmother Daria Jewel and Magnus came from? Why had Magnus kidnapped her mother and held her prisoner? But if she answered the spellbinder, she might be able to locate her, and he would certainly harm her grandmother. Blood Grandmaster seemed to realize that Tara wasn't going to move because she walked up to the door and put his hand on the handle. A shark jumped out of it. She cursed it and took a few steps back. "I know you are in there, Tara," he snapped. "I can sense your conscious mind in the house. The confidence spell wouldn't work against me because I have strength and power. Watch this." She was behaving exactly like evil wizards do in the movies, and it was so fascinating that Tara had lost precious moments just watching him. With his billowing cave making him look like a giant bat, the man raised his hand very high, shouting something, and set a jet light crashing the door. And she was spiritually linked in the house. Tara sensed that it would hold out, but not for long. Very fast, she came up with a plan. She got up and grabbed her grandma. Then, without bothering keeping her bouncing against the wall, she unlocked the bedroom door and ran to Tachul and Meg's room. They were still asleep. She remembered what Daria had told. It was enough to visualize the body and bring it to gesture. She couldn't remember the spell, but she hadn't needed it the last time. Maybe she wouldn't now. She concentrated, and the two bodies floated in mid-air. Okay, now, how to hide and everybody. The man outside had said that he would send her conscious mind, so he couldn't deact the mind in the house. He would leave her alone. All she had to do was hide 3 unconscious bodies, and she already figured out how to do that. She took a pair of scissors, walked over to the curtains and cut cords and held them, tying her grandmother to 2 servants together. One after another, she raced upstairs to the attic, tugging the bodies behind her. The attic ceiling was very high and dark. Tara took a broom and used the handle to smash the only light bulb in the attic. She looked at the unconscious body. Okay, now, she muttered. If I send you up there, will that do the trick? She raised the hand of vicious Isabella, Tachul, and Magus stuck up against the ceiling. To her great relief, the 3 bodies already rose upward and vanished into the shadows, completely out of sight. Great, so far so good. Less of Bloodgrave is like most of the people doesn't think look up. Now it's my turn. Quick as flash, she rushed down back to her grandmother's room and locked the door. She could sense that protecting the house was about to give away. She ran over to the carpet and felt the place where Matu had put his bowl. Something happened at the moment with protection. The book with a short nap. Ready or not, here I come, Tara. Tara rolled her eyes. Even though she was terrified, she thought Bloodgrave was really pathetic, total loser. She started at the carpet again, but it wasn't coupling in the least. Not ripple. At the last see, she thought. It doesn't want to open because I'm human. If I would have Matthew, come here. Heard the sound of the intruder entering the house. The laughter. The lavender obviously came out of his portion by the door. Matthew, we have to get out of here fast. You have to open the passage, do you understand? But the dog whined. Then Tara gave Tara's face a big leap and went back to the door. Downstairs, the spellbinder was searching for Tara, calling her name. Come here, you stupid dog, she from. Open the trap door. Matthew looked at her and barked. That's bring Tara heard the spellbind react to the sound. She stopped and ran around and headed straight to the stairs. I don't know exactly where you are, Tara, but I feel that you aren't far. Come on, sweetie. There's no need to be afraid. If there is one thing Tara really hated, it was being called sweetie. She stopped and Matthew dragged him to the carpet by the scarf and grabbed his paw and forcefully set it on the carpet. Nothing happened. The dog twisted away and ran off. Thinking they were playing a new game, she darted across the room, jumped on the bed, slipped on the table, and then returned to the carpet. He wagged a tail like a maniac, taunting her. Tara could hear the spellbinder climbing the stairs to the landing. Matthew, we got to get us out of here, she moaned. Good doggy. Oh, now. The lab cocked his head, seeming to listen to her carefully. She moved Then, without doing it on purpose, he put his paw in the carpet. Miraculously, the hole opened just as the bedroom door locked within, and the blood ran each. Tara grabbed the dog and dove him headfirst to the secret passage with him. The hole closed up behind them. Two of them tumbled down the passage, which seemed shooting them aside. The passage stone fell round and oddly. Tara decided she really didn't want to know what she suspected. The tunnel was alive. They burst into the grass behind the manor at the edge of the woods. She tensed, waiting for the mud-eater to jump her. Given choice, though, she preferred the hairy beast to Bloodgrave. She started to see the mud-eaters walking away from her, marching on to get toward the front of the house. At that she laughed. Bloodgrave Master didn't tell them that they had to stay behind the house, only to encirclement around it, which is probably what the mud-eaters had been doing for the last quarter of an hour. Repressing an exhibiting attack of giggles, Tara ran tight into the ooze. Even in the dark, she knew every tree killing by her. Bloodland had no chance of finding her there. Suddenly, she heard an angry roar followed by a terrific explosion. She turned and saw the rage. Bloodglaive had blown the roof of the house. To her horror, the walls of the manor house burst into flames.